Okay, we're rolling.
Okay. I want to thank everybody for coming. We're starting a little bit late, but late is better than never. I'm going to depart from the agenda because we have two guests who finally came. Sarah Kirkwood, who's only been here, she's Johnny come lately, I think for 25 years she's on. And
Brooke Little?
he's here 8 seconds.
He's 30 years.
30 years. And he came only for a part-time job. They have graciously come. I invited them. They weren't able to make it last time, if you recall. Both are representatives of AMR, who has been on the village, I'm told, for 25 years. It is one of the topics that I wrote about at the beginning, one of the two hot-button topics that prevail in the village. And I asked them to come so they can tell us what they feel they have offered us. And so with no further ado, Sarah, you're taking it?
Yes.
Come on up.
Here's the camera. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. For those who know me, my name is Sarah Kirkwood. I've been management and contract management for AMR. I've been with AMR for 30 years. My companion that's here, in case we have any operational questions, his name is Brooke Little, and he's also been with AMR running the operational end of this company for the past 30 years. He's responsible for all of Broward County and all of Palm Beach County, for all our paramedics, all our equipment, all our staffing, and all of our issues that we have out in the field. My responsibilities are contracting. I've been responsible specifically for this contract for more than 25 years, and other contracts with healthcare providers, with hospitals, with insurance companies, with assisted living, with managed care, and with other ambulance companies, in fact, at times. AMR, as a review, is the largest provider of ambulance transportation in the country. We have air, ground, international, and as a result of that, we also have the FEMA contract nationally, which is the only private company that handles all of the catastrophic issues across the country. And we sit on committees and we make sure that we deploy services from communications to transportation and set up systems that have completely collapsed. And we stay in those areas until those times when those companies and those agencies can get back on their feet. And we have been doing that for almost 20 years in that capacity. So we're very large, but we're still mom and pop, because we're still homegrown in the counties that we service. I wanted to review some of last year's services. Since this is the Finance Committee, I want the opportunity to discuss what's dear to this committee's heart is what the costs are, what services are provided, what the actual cost is, and what you would consider if you decided you no longer wanted AMR, what the potential out-of-pocket would cost as a result of that decision. Our history with this community is very long. It has been with various members of the senior committees. Some we've gotten along well with and some we didn't. What we have prevailed over the years, I always found that in my history with this community, the better the dialogue, the better the information, the better educated everyone is as to what our services are, what the costs are, what the real information is, the better decisions you make. Because unfortunately, a lot of information is wrong. A lot of information is partial, and so you're not getting a really big or true picture of what your needs are. So Ed had asked me to look at and review approximately just the last year. So with those numbers, I just want to preface it to say that the majority of this, a huge portion, not half, not 50%, I don't have a specific number, but is a definite reduction in the amount of transports based on the COVID issue in the last year. So where we were going pretty smooth up to December, January, February, at the beginning of the year, then it tanked. Because facilities, first of all, were not letting their patients out. They weren't letting them in. They didn't encourage anyone to leave a house. They didn't encourage anyone to go to a doctor. They didn't encourage pretty much anything. So the rehabs were pretty much shut down. The assisted livings and the skilled nursings were pretty much shut down. So all of that transportation back and forth for those facilities was an issue and became a very low number until the state and the county picked up some health plans that could help make sure that people who needed to be transported were done safely. Now, I'll also preface to say that my employees, my paramedics and EMTs across Palm Beach County and Broward County and every county that we work in are actually transporting COVID patients daily, have continued to do so safely. We discharge back and forth from hospitals. Those patients still need care, and we have been doing so all along, including the residents of this community who may have COVID. So let's go to discuss the basic numbers. I had come up with a total emergency calls. It's almost a complete number, but there may be some variation if we happen to be driving in this area on our way to pick up a patient and there's an accident in front of us. That paramedic crew stops to take care and render care. If at that patient's care is really critical or urgent, we notify rescue, but we don't wait for them. If the patient's life is at stake, we have the right to transport that patient. So those patients who may have gotten a bill and let us know that because they were out in the field or out in the street and we transported them, it was a covered service. So it's a little bit variable on the emergency show, but we have approximately 426 calls, emergency calls that we did last year. Anyone who wants to note that. What number you don't see regularly, and we finally got a system set up where we can track that better, is all the other ambulance trips that we actually do that are not 911. So let me review how the system works, and so that we can go into these numbers a little bit better. In any medical emergency, we require and encourage at all times that the resident, the patient, or anyone is calling should always call rescue first, always call 911. Because the hierarchy, or how the system actually works, is rescue is called, the information is given to that operator asks certain questions that are in a flip chart per se, and based on the medical emergency, we'll send rescue out. That paramedic that arrives assesses the patient. He is the lead paramedic. That's how the system works. Now, if the paramedic is checking out the patient and it seems like maybe it's a simple fall, it doesn't look like it's really an emergency, and now they throw a blood pressure cuff on the patient and the blood pressure has got through the roof, that's life-threatening. He quietly packages up the patient and he takes the patient to the emergency room. He doesn't call AMR. If that same patient who maybe had a fractured foot, say, is now stable, takes the blood pressure is fine, there isn't any issue, it's no longer an emergency, so they call AMR and AMR takes the patient. The difference is if Fire Rescue takes you, they bill your insurance. If you happen to be a Humana member, you're going to pay $250 out of pocket for that transport. We do not tell any paramedic, whether it's being an AMR paramedic, and I know Fire Rescue doesn't either, to determine whether they take you or they call us based on your insurance information. This is strictly based on the patient's condition, period. We don't encourage our paramedics, nor does the county encourage their paramedics to determine whether they take a patient based on a financial hardship or need. It is strictly the physical condition of that patient, period. So unfortunately, there are people that have been taken by rescue, and what happens is now you get to the hospital, and maybe it is just a broken foot, and by the time you got there, your blood pressure is okay. Paramedic didn't know that at the time, but that's what he did. He sent you by them, they took you. And in hindsight now, that patient who lives here, who has Humana, has to pay Fire Rescue $250 copay. That's stressful. but it is real. You do not determine, unfortunately, you don't determine at the time of an emergency whether you want to pay $250 or you want to take a chance on your life. That's exactly what's happening. In hindsight, people will call us and say, well, I got a bill, where did you get it from? I got a bill from Rescue. Okay, well, I only needed AMR, or I told them AMR. I said, they're not going to call us. They're first going to assess you. So with that said, now you're going to be transported by AMR. Say they call us and now AMR is transporting you. We take you to the hospital and we bill your insurance, just like fire rescue does. And your insurance denies and says, nah, we see hindsight that that's not a covered service. Or it is a covered service and you have to bill them for the $250. Well, we don't bill you for the $250, you have the contract. It's a covered service. So that out-of-pocket cost is nil. Now you're at the hospital and they assess your foot and maybe there's some complications and you have to go to rehab. Well, how do you think a hospital gets you from the hospital to rehab? They don't discharge you and tell you you're on your own. They call AMR for an ambulance to take you to the rehab, because that's the system. That's how it works. They must hand you over to a competent, reliable transportation. It's not non-medical. You're going to a skilled nursing for rehab. They can't hand you to just anyone. They have to hand you to someone who has the potential to be able to deal with you from point A to point B in case something happens. So now you have that ambulance trip that's not covered by your insurance, because it don't cover. They say you could have gone by car or you could have gone by non-medical transportation. Hospital is not going to be responsible for that. They're going to send you by an ambulance. Now who do they call? AMR. We take you. You're covered. It's not disputed. We covered you. If you now have to go to another hospital for a higher level of care, we send an advanced life support ambulance. We take you. If your insurance decides that for whatever reason it's not going to cover, we cover you. So there's a 426 volume of transports that are emergency transports a year, and there's an additional 277 inter-facility transports that we cover, that is on our billing books as a write-off to your contract. So that's actually a total of 703 transports a year, and that's a very low number this year. So when I calculate what you're covered for and what you would have had to pay out of pocket if you didn't have the contract, there's a huge difference. And here's the difference. Right now you pay me $137,083 in pennies a year. That's for the ambulance transports. It's actually per door, not per person, but per door. $1.45.45 they add of this odd little couple of half a quarter of a penny nonsense, but it adds up. Okay, so the actual cost to you is $1.45.45 per unit per month, not per person, but per unit per month. So that total comes out to, here I am, that $137,083, $137,083. Had you not had the contract, the 426 transports that we would have not had, but you would have had anyway. Here's what the cost would have been on the low end, because my rates, my published rates, are significantly lower than fire rescue by hundreds of dollars. So even if we were available here and we're doing a transport for you, I can tell you what our rates are. Fire rescue is, like I said, several $100s a trip more. Had that 426 trips been an out-of-pocket cost at our published rates, it would have been $269,445 for the year, just on the emergency side. On the non-emergency side, once you're at the hospital and you need those discharges by ambulance, that is AMR, or anybody else that's in the county that's doing transportation, into facility transportation. So that cost on average is $147,502 out of pocket. So the total that it would have cost you out of pocket, had you had no contract at all, for the individual residents for the year would have been $416,947. You pay me $137,000. There's a difference of $279,867 difference. That's what we're saving this community. When you are looking at the amount of people and you're looking at the amount of services, and I'm sure you're sitting here going over all of your budget numbers, I just want to beg to ask the question, are you doing any budgets that are saving you that kind of money a year? Saving your community that kind of money a year? I doubt it. Even if they're getting free cable, what's the cable, $100 a month on average? Times 12, that's $1,200. That's not 200-something thousand dollars a year, at least. Besides the less stress, besides when they call me, because it's me that gets the phone number. Barbara will attest, when there's an issue, I tell people, do never pay the bill. Go into the Yuko office and let us know, and we will make sure that we get it corrected. Because there's times when it's picking up from a nursing home, and we're taking that patient because he needs an ambulance to a medical appointment or back to the hospital. That's not a covered service under your insurance unless it's an emergency. So those are out-of-pocket costs that we automatically write off. Now, you want to know why we do all of this? Because we've been in this community for 35, almost 40 years. I've been doing this about 30 years. We've been in this community 25. In Palm Beach County, we have a tremendous amount of relationships here. And for many years, we were the only game in town. Well, we're a responsible, reputable company. We have to give back to the community. And what's the best place to help give back is in the community that has such political clout. It's nice to be able to go to a county commissioners and when they come to the community and say, yeah, we have your ambulance company, or you supported this and it's been a benefit to the community. It makes them look good and they make us look good. Because they're the ones that decide whether we have a contract or not. Those are the ones that allow us to come in. Those COPCN, those contracts are awarded to us based on our merit, not just our ability to run a good, solid business. Now, a lot of people would say, well, why isn't it less, or why isn't it cheaper, or why can't you just give it us at cost? Could you just give something away? Could you give a few of it away? You're still making money. We can't do that. And the reason we can't do that is because of being a national company, every nickel that we get in, every contract that we have, must be scrutinized by our national legal department. And like anything that handles Medicare dollars, we have to make sure that a percentage of the profit margin must be met so that it does not look like we are giving something away in order to get Medicare dollars. Inducement puts you in an orange jumpsuit, and honest to God, I don't look good in orange. And none of us do. And don't think that there have not been companies out there that were shut down and slammed down or have millions of dollars in fines as a result of not having the right pricing so that it doesn't appear to Medicare, because who are they going to come after? They're not going to come after the little guy. They want the big deep pocket. They want to see, and they scrutinize us across this country, in half the world that we're in, for every dollar, they're making sure that we are on the up and up. We're squeaky clean and have been all the years that I've been here. That's how we operate. It's easy. I have a very short memory, so I'm not a liar, because I don't have time to remember what your lies are. That's a good liar. You have to have a good memory. I'm not a good liar. Those are the numbers that we were talking about. Part of the issue is the miscommunication. I would hope that if there's any questions, any questions that you had. I don't care if they're negative or positive. I'm not here to get a pat on the back. I'm here to address any serious concerns, any hearsay, any gossip that may be swaying you to say, yeah, they're full of baloney, or they're nonsense. Because I can back it up with fact. Anything that you have. Yes, sir.
Okay, how much do you charge the insurance companies per ride?
Okay. Depending on the insurance, well, depending on what contract we have with that individual insurance. As an example is Humana. Humana pays us a couple of $100s per trip. But because most Humana patients are obligated to pay at least $250, I believe it's now, out of pocket for any ambulance. It used to be only non-emergency, but now it's even emergency trips that you have to pay for. So had we not had the contract, I would bill Humana, like I do with every other community that doesn't have a contract, and I balance bill them my cost, because I don't have a contract. So I would get the insurance, and whatever the out-of-pocket pay, co-pay, or balance is, just like fire rescue does, you get a bill. So it's not just if I'm only getting a couple of $100, I'm getting my money. I'm going to get it either through the insurance, I'm going to get it through the co-pays, but I'm going to get that money for that cost.
What I'm saying, because we don't have co-pays here for AMR, do we?
No, not for AMR, but you do have Humana here, right?
I'm talking about just AMR. What do you charge them? All right. In other words,
It depends on the insurance.
out of 426,
Right.
divided it by what your contract is, comes out to $321.60 per ride.
Right.
And you're not charging us a copay. So are you taking the copay that you Humana?
Yes, because I'm billing your insurance, plus I'm taking your money every month. It's a collective. It's one pot, as an example.
Well, that's what I want to know.
Okay.
I want to know, so you're charging them $500-600 per ride?
Generally, yeah.
Okay, that's what I want to know.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Supposing the individual has no insurance.
They're covered.
In other words, if an individual has no insurance
We're
whatsoever,
covered completely. They live here in this community, they need ambulance transportation, we take them. We have no insurance, we do ask. We also have a charitable fund our company has, even for people I'm being honest, so someone who even is not in the community. If they have if a facility calls us to transport someone who's completely indigent, or someone who has no income at all, as long as they give this the right documentation, our charitable fund covers that anyway. But if the resident is here, he's covered, whether he has insurance or not.
one other question.
Yes.
The other question is, the negativity that I hear in the village is that it takes too long
Okay.
for your ambulance to pick up somebody.
Okay, and I get that. Here's the issue. Once rescue calls us, it's no longer an emergency. We try to get here within 15 minutes, but it's actually not our legal obligation to get here within that 15 minutes. We strive for that, but there are times, whether it's rain, whether it's logistics, whether there's a mass casualty, if there's an accident somewhere, if our crew has an accident on the way here, all of those are variables. We let rescue know we're not going to be able to respond timely. They could wait for us. We always give them the option to wait. We don't tell them we're not coming. They could wait, or they could take the patient. And there are times when they decide they want to take the patient. Again, that hierarchy is where the fire rescue paramedic is the lead. He decides whether we come, he decides whether he calls us, and he decides whether he wants to wait. Right, yes?
A person who is a veteran, all right, but they don't have any outside insurance, just through the VA, you'll take them to the VA,
Of course.
but
Well, here's how it works. Let me
assuming they
stop.
don't have, you know, a manner, all they have is
Okay,
VA.
if they don't have anything, even if they're veterans, if they needed to go to the VA hospital, under the 911, unless that patient is extremely stable, we can take, now rescue won't take you to the VA, but if say, well, let's talk about that fractured foot and say, listen, I don't want to go to the closest hospital, can you take me to the VA? We can do that. We're not constrained to a particular zone like rescue is. So yes, we can take you out of that, but you need to let us know that. And that fractured foot, if your blood pressure is sky high, we're taking you to the closest facility, just like rescue would. Yes,
Could you talk up a little bit, please?
okay.
Remove your mask.
How many communities does this group of ambulances you have serve? And how many ambulances do you have for this?
Okay, so let me tell you how this works. It's called System Status Management. We've been using it for pretty much forever. What we do is we go by history. So I can pull up this day, last year, the year before, and the last 15 years, and tell you how many transports we did that day. I can tell you where I did those transports. I can tell you how many trucks I had on the road for that day. I can tell you where our shortfalls might have come, where we didn't have as money in the north end where we should have had, and what we needed to do to adjust to that. So I can use that system to look at to see what staffing is appropriate. Now, it is all based on the calls and the volume that we transport. Will depend on how many trucks we put in any one zone. Before COVID, we would like to have a truck, unusually had a truck, if I'm correct, Brooke, right in this area. And we left them floating around here because we knew we were going to get calls. Now with COVID, like I said, it dropped tremendously. We inched our way out. We even kept them there a longer time because you never know, it might change. And so once we got that statistic that it was lower, it wasn't necessary to have that truck so close. It's still in the area, it's still in the vicinity, but they're not 2 blocks away anymore. They may be sitting right down at the urgent care. Yes, ma'am.
You transport COVID patients. What do you do? What do you do to protect a patient who uses that same service, that same truck, after the COVID patient has been transported?
Okay.
I can answer that.
Of course, Brooke, you do.
It's a great question. We follow the CDC guidelines. We're required to decontaminate the inside of the ambulance, the back, the front, open the doors, air it out. We have special foggers that we use. Everything gets wiped down for a minimum of 30 minutes.
Before it's used again?
Oh, yes. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Folks, before you speak, make sure you take your mask down so that the camera can hear you.
Okay.
I know they didn't take you out.
Yes, Barbara.
I just want to say to everybody, I mean, we all lived here a long time, we know, but I've had a case where I had to use AMR, and I have very good insurance. I have Medicare plus a supplement. But most people, when you go emergency from here, I don't care what kind of insurance you have, they're going to charge you $720 or $750. That's the bill you're going to get.
Mhm.
Now, you take that bill and send it to your insurance company. Whatever you got to pay, you're going to have to pay. That has nothing to do with them. But I'm talking about the people in this village. There are cases, like she said, where they can wait for AMR, which is X amount. But the biggest thing is a lot of our people go to hospitals, and then after the hospital, where do most of our people have to go?
Home.
Rehab.
Oh, home, yes.
And that's when AMR
Covers.
is going to come in and take them from the hospital to the rehab, and they're not going to pay for it.
Yep.
So if you don't think $1.46 a month is worth it, you better think again. And hopefully you never use it, believe me.
I
Yes.
just want to make a statement. Going back several years, I had an issue with my husband who was ill, and we called. And at one time we did get billing, and we had our own private insurance. Nothing like Humana or anything like that. And at the time, we were covered. And so I called up your office, spoke to someone, and explained the situation. I never had to pay a cent, because in addition to what we pay here monthly,
Right.
we had our coverage.
Right.
And that's what people have to do. They have to be their own advocates. Don't someone from somewhere that's going to interfere or intervene for you. You call up and you state your case and you will get the proper results.
A lot of people think, and a lot of the negative feedback that we get is, well, I have coverage that completely covers. And I look at them, I go, no, you don't.
No, you don't.
Oh, no, you do. My coverage, I had the best. No, you don't. Because here's how it actually works. Medicare is the parent. And every other insurance falls under Medicare guidelines. Not that they're governed by it, but they use them as the barometer as to what's covered and not covered. Years ago, when we transported a patient from a hospital to a rehab, and I'm talking about an inpatient nursing home patient, I'm not talking about someone who broke their foot. I'm talking about someone who needed 24-hour nursing care, who was on oxygen. Used to be a completely covered service. Well, about 5 or 6 years ago, Medicare said, well, maybe they could have self-administer their own oxygen. So oxygen isn't a covered service anymore. It doesn't warrant the need of an ambulance. So Medicare denies those transports. Every year, Medicare makes more and more stringent, and the reason we know about it is because that's generally the first ones we call. And that's the first ones we bill. And so when we see those services diminishing in Medicare, I can guarantee you that it will trickle down to other insurances, like Humana. Humana used to cover everything. Then they stopped covering for the 911 calls. And so it was $100 out of pocket. Then they said, well, now we're not going to cover for the emergency calls either. And that was $100. And now it's up to $250 that they want you to pay out of pocket. That's not going to change. The whole idea of this contract is so this helps stabilize what's ever happening in the government, what's ever happening in healthcare. We have other communities, I'm not even going to go into it, that we do 100 times more than just the ambulance trips. And they pay us 50 times more than you're paying us. But those are communities that are younger, to be honest, and see the value of a stable outgo of funds that consistently is the same without their insurances or Medicare making a difference or making a change that could impact you from year to year. That's the whole purpose. And so when I save you money, I have no problem standing in front of a commissioner. Brooke stands in front of those commissioners all the time. They love us because we're helping those residents in those communities. We're selective in those communities. We don't take all the communities that we sit down and discuss with. Some of them are too small, frankly. Some of them, they want absurd perks that we're not allowed to give. That orange jumpsuit comes in play again, and think that they can negotiate. My concern is every year or every few years, there are delegates or people in place or people coming to the community. They have this much information and they speak this much like they know. And they don't. And any time that you get anybody negative or anybody that thinks that they know better or they're being duped or they're getting conned, my phone number is available, Brooke's phone number is available to anybody, and I can have this discussion with anyone. I don't need a script. I brought my numbers so that you had an idea what the numbers are. I'm doing, as I said, too many years. This is all ingrained in us. It's all ingrained in Brooke, it's all ingrained in all the top management that's with the company and has been for a long time. Do we have friends here? I would hope so. If there is something that you feel that you are not getting the best bang for your buck, please make the time to research so that you are getting the best information, because is there potential for change? Of course there is. There are people who are going to committees and going to the county commission and petitioning to come into the county to do ambulance transportation. That's public knowledge, that's not new. I can't imagine that some of the board members or some of the people haven't already been contacted by some of those people looking to get their toe in the door with an established community and think that they're going to offer something different. Okay, be careful what you wish for, number one. I don't have to prove my veracity and our reliability. I've proved it over 25 years. There hasn't been anyone that I have not dealt with in this community that I have not been up and up in a straight shooter with. Like I said, I have a short memory. I don't have time for a lie. So if there's any questions that you need to be answered, yes.
I don't want to belabor it, but I have two questions. I have 6 grandchildren who are visiting me. One gets sick. Are they covered by AMR?
No.
No.
We'll take them to the emergency room. They're not a resident here. They need to be a resident here. It used to be visitors, but it got to the point where the visitors were outweighing the residents. And people from the next community were coming over here and saying they lived here, and they actually didn't. Or they needed ambulance transportation to go to the grocery store, and we didn't. So, yeah, no.
The other question, and relinquish the floor. I think you mentioned, and I think the fire department mentioned, that there's possible legislation where your exclusivity is being challenged and other firms could conceivably service Palm Beach County.
Look, you want to talk about that?
Sure.
Or goes to all the county commission meetings?
I wouldn't use the term being challenged. In Palm Beach County, for private ambulance transportation, the county issues a COPCN, which is a Certificate of Public Need and Necessity. So they assess the need within the community. They look at what the current provider is doing. Are they meeting the needs of the public? If not, then they have the ability to award additional COPCNs to companies outside. We've managed to maintain, our service levels for the 30 years I've been here in Palm Beach County working without any other company having to come in and do that. So we're very proud of that. But to answer your question, yes, every 6 years the process comes open. They allow outside agencies to submit an application. That application gets reviewed by the EMS Council and then by the Palm Beach County Board of County Commissioners. Then they make the decision. So every time they've made the decision to keep AMR, not allow anybody else in, and maybe it'll happen again, maybe it won't, but that's on the agenda in next July.
Well, my personal thing is, I think you've given us a lot of information, and before we let you go, I want to make one more. Does anybody else have any questions?
Yes.
The numbers that you gave, the 426 or whatever the number was, is that year to date this year, or was that
It's
last
September
year's
to
number?
September, from September 2019 to 2020.
Okay.
So it's the most recent, consistent, full month information that we could get.
All right, so that is a full year of
Yes.
numbers.
Oh, yeah, that's 12 months. That's why you could see that once September, October, November, December, we started to January, that's when we was really tanking. And that was a significant loss of business, all across the
About
county.
30%.
About 30%. That's the voice of the numbers. He's the numbers guy, and he knows operationally. Anybody else? Any other questions?
There being no other questions, I want to thank you both for coming, and I think it's been very enlightening. And do you have any literature that you can give us or give us?
No, I think that those numbers, it's not necessary to give you a document on it.
Do you have, I thought I saw at one point, something like a card that sticks to your refrigerator?
No, we don't. No, we don't.
Okay.
No. We found that most of those cards were gone because we do a lot of transports here, so we were, and they're costly, those magnets are costly,
I just,
so we just assumed that. And to tell you the truth, there isn't any agency that doesn't know that we have a contract here.
You gotta call 911 in order to get
That's
there.
right.
Bob?
You have to call 911
That's right.
in order
Yeah.
to get them,
Oh,
so.
you can't-
Now, we have people,
You can't call them directly.
let me add this, and stop me if I'm wrong. Our communication center is structured exactly like a 911 communication center is. They're just as certified and go through the same training and certifications and inspections and recertifications every few months that any 911 system goes through. So when those questions are asked by the 911 operator, we ask the identical questions. So if you decide that, well, I don't care what she says, I'm gonna call AMR Direct so I can get them instead of getting rescue. If you say, I fainted, if you say, oh, well, I was just blacked out for a minute, if you say, I've fallen and I really can't get up and there's an issue, okay, we're going to call rescue for you. We're not coming. We have to call and stay in the system. Now, a lot of people get concerned that if they fell and there's no injury and they need someone to pick them up, that if they call rescue, they're going to be angry with them, or there's going to be an issue, or there's going to be a charge. The only time you are charged by any agency, whether it's 911, fire rescue, or AMR, is if you're physically in our ambulance. So it's called a lift assist. It's a courtesy call. Rescue comes out, helps you. They don't charge you for that. They are going to look around to make sure you have food. Are they going to look around on how you fell in the first place? What might be, a poor environment? Yeah, they're obligated now to look at other things. I had a call yesterday for about 40 minutes with a resident here who was taken to the hospital, and she was concerned because the county paramedic stayed in her apartment after they took her out. And I said, well, was anything missing when you got back? And she said, no, but I don't like the idea they're in my house. I said, well, maybe they were looking for other reasons. You live alone. Do you have food? How are you accessing inside your house? Those are things that they would relate to the hospital, social service department. So those people can't just say, yeah, you could go. Oh, no, no. Now the paramedic said not only did they fall, but they're a risk at home. That needs to be investigated. They'll send home health. The insurance will cover home health. Someone come out and check that out. That's the second next step in Medicare and healthcare, because we're trying to prevent you to go back to the hospital, to be in a better environment so you don't have to be in that issue. So fire rescue will take those steps. Any other questions?
Just one thing, another question. You said if you have, anybody has questions to call you?
Yeah.
Would you leave your card so they'll have your number?
Okay. I should be published in the UCO.
It's probably in the reporter.
It's in the reporter. It has my name, Sarah Kirkwood, Business
Is it in the
Development.
paper?
Yeah, but
I don't
Right?
remember
Sarah
everything.
Kirkwood, fire, 561-262-0556.
Your
slowly.
name is on the agenda.
Yeah.
If you write it down, you'll have it.
Okay, 561-262-0556. My name, my title, and my phone number have been in the reporter for probably 20 years. Almost every issue, right, Bart? Yeah, pretty much. So there's always access to me. And if I don't get back to you immediately, I always call back, eventually, but I always call back.
Again, thank you, and we hope that everybody stays well.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much for coming, giving your time.
Actually, something that you just mentioned about, I fell, I was in the bathroom and my knee went, and I couldn't get out. And finally I managed, my friend is here, so I called her. I waited until 7 o'clock in the morning, and finally they did come, and 3 firemen came and 2 lifted me up, and I was perfectly fine. I said, you won't go to the hospital? I said, no, I didn't need the hospital. As a matter of fact, they didn't even check my blood pressure, but I was fine. The bottom line is, yes, you can do this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, Sarah. Take
Okay,
care of yourself.
good seeing you,
Yeah.
sweetie.
Moving along, Jean, can you read the minutes?
I'd be happy to. It
And
would be easier for me to
if
get
you
my.
give me a minute, I think I'm gonna bring some paper towels in because we'll be passing the mic around. We should clean it.
Here.
Bring some what?
In other words, we're passing the mic around. You should get-
Oh, yeah, we should have somebody to select thing to what you're telling.
They look, but they're folded with fresh, but even with their.
All right, Gene, you're on.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Was there, thank you. Now that they're gone, was there a discussion about dropping it? Was that the whole reason why you were here?
Excuse me?
Was there a discussion about dropping the AMR?
Well, you asked a good question. I'm at the-
We didn't hear it. We didn't
I
hear it.
said I'll yell.
Yeah,
I
The
said-
question was asked, why are they here?
Was there a discussion about dropping them?
Yes.
Is that the reason they're here?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, well, I put the big.
More than one discussion that I've heard, both before and since I'm in the UCO office, that it's not necessary, it's an additional expense, whatever.
I told you.
I felt, whether I'm for it or not, I think we should hear it.
Absolutely. I
And
told
that's
you.
why I had it here.
Well, you have a bunch of videos of.
I left the item, if you remember, in our budget,
Okay.
and it's the same amount. I think I raised it a few pennies, I didn't know if it was gonna be the same. But it's basically $1.45 per unit per month, and if you have 2 people in your unit, it's 72.5 cents per person.
Right.
All right, Gene, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. The meeting was called to order by Ed Grossman, Treasurer. Board members present were Barbara Cornish, Betty Lee Plickman, Marcia Zaccardi, Olga Walkenstein, Jean Dowling, and Americo, can't,
Just a minute.
okay, America. Last name is tough. He was with us by phone. America hung up at 1:40. Also present was Stuart Richland, UCO Vice President. The minutes were read and approved. Refunds from UCO in the amount of $17,000 will be returned to a list of those entitled to a refund for insurance. An article in the UCO paper will announce the action. Guy Strom, UCO auditor, is almost finished. The audit must be filed by October 15th. He feels we need to make some changes in our accounting system. AMR was invited to the meeting to discuss the ambulance contract, but due to illness, the representative could not be present. A study needs to be made of the number of people moving in from different parts of the country as investigation costs vary. The New York area is more expensive at $95. Last month, there were 50 new residents moving into Century Village. Stewart tried to obtain the information from WPRF with no results. Keith LeBlanc from Federal Engineering and Testing Incorporated informed the committee that there are about 2 years of life left in the main roads, but the side streets and parking areas need to be done soon. He explained that the wrong type of rock was used in the base of the roads, and that is why we get only 10 years on a paving job. If we went down to the bottom and replaced the base, we should get about 15 years service. The problem is that the cost of that repair is much more than scraping and repaving. One of the problems is that the soil underneath is sandy and not stable, added to the fact that we get a lot of rain, which undermines the structure. We have $100,000 in reserves. It was suggested that we hire a project manager this time, and Keith said that his company could do that. A request for a bike path was requested again and again was turned down. Stewart spoke on the beautification budget. He requested $20,000 in the budget for flowers only, explaining that they only use annuals, which lasts for 3 to 4 months and then need to be replanted. It was suggested that they use perennials so that they would only need planting every few years. 12.5% of the cable bill is taxes. However, the cable bill is a fixed cost by contract. The fire department was asked to send a spokesman to our meeting, but no one showed up. A new item for auditor in the budget was broken down to bookkeeper at $45 an hour, administrative salaries, 2 people, administrative assistant, $15 per hour for 4 hours. 1 position is currently open. Computer costs, $15 per computer, 30 to 40 computers. Steve does the repairs. Phones, $725 a month. Irrigation, $16,320 a month. Need a new pump. Volunteer luncheon is $4,000. The next meeting will be held on Thursday, October 14th at 2:00 p.m. Recorded by Jean Dowling, Secretary.
Any comments, corrections?
Marcia.
Marcia, go first.
Yeah, I think it was mentioned that you had asked Don Foster to attend these meetings and he didn't want to or he refused.
Excuse me, dear?
I think you had said that you asked Don Foster to attend the meeting and he refused or he wasn't going to, and that should have been, I think should have been in the minutes.
What I said is that on every meeting
You
that.
gotta take that down, we can't hear him.
Excuse me. What I said is that I've asked all the officers, and when we were focusing on the roadways and on irrigation, I had asked Donald Foster to come. Giving an analogy to WPRF's meetings on budget, where Dan, I don't know his last name, who is the can for, I think, all 3 villages,
Dan Cruz.
Dan Cruz, to come, and I thought it would be beneficial. I'm going to make a quick comment in between. In the past, we had taken care of the filming of the meeting ourselves. We have the fact that Bob Rivera came today on his own and volunteered, and he's very experienced. And also, so you know, I'm not sure that the last meeting ever got on the blog or anyplace else, and so I purchased for the Finance Committee a chip, and I think after that we won't be put sort of in the back burner, because I think somehow you could bring that forward, and if it doesn't get on other media, it can get on YouTube. Go ahead, Bob.
I will take care of that.
You're going to take care of it?
Wow,
Yeah,
thank
it's
you.
very simply because I need to have a copy of it. I get a copy just to, if I do the minutes, I watch over and over. That's why my minutes are so good, because I watch things over and over. And if things are discussed in the proper fashion, then I can do it. I have difficulty with this meeting for some
I'm
reason.
sorry you can't do
I
that.
said I have difficulty doing minutes for this meeting for some reason, because it just jumbles to me. But that's why I asked that Jean go ahead and do the minutes here. But I still I want to make a copy. If you want your chip back, I'll give you your chip back.
The reason I want the chip back, so you know, Bob, I understand I got a little gizmo that you plug into your computer, and you could put that chip into your computer and see exactly what goes on when
Right.
you put it anywhere else. And I think it would be beneficial for us if we want to review stuff. You know, you don't have to go back 3 months or whatever on the blog. You could put it on the computer. Am I
Well,
right?
I put it on the computer, like that meeting I did on the phone. It might have sounded terrible, but it got on the blog, simply because, you know, I did it on my phone. I took it over to Kitty.
The last meeting, what we did, Bob, so you know, we had a mic in the middle
Mhm.
to try to pick up the ambient sound.
Oh, is that the one that didn't have any video, it was just, audio?
Excuse me?
You're talking about the audio one, right?
Yes, because the audio, many times you see it, and it's really indistinguishable. So I felt we need something to boost it up, that's why I put the mics around or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know why that is wrong.
Can you also get it on YouTube?
That audio one? That
No,
one?
the film.
Oh,
Today.
yeah, this I can put on YouTube.
Well,
I can
I
put
would
it on
appreciate
YouTube.
it if you do, because that gives people who are not
See,
exactly in here the opportunity.
I will take this, I'll make my copy, and then I'll take it over to Kitty. She will get it on TV and on the blog.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Are you saying that they can
You should
put it
use the
on
mic.
the channels on TV?
Yeah, not the audio one.
No,
I'm-
like a
this
video
one.
today, they
Yeah.
can put that?
Do it all the time.
Really?
Yeah. The
Okay.
last meeting, that was recorded is on
The
it's on the blog.
WPRF meeting that we had here was recorded and never put on the TV. I happened to find it on YouTube. And was never put on David's blog, just to let you know.
It might have been possible that Kitty was taking care of John at the time. So,
That's possible, yeah,
Yeah.
no.
I mean-
She's the one who told me where to find it.
yeah.
Barbara,
She
we
said
gotta
they
get
don't
you-
put it
we gotta
on.
get you a mic. I sort of diverted from finishing up with the minutes. I know I had one or two corrections.
All right, let's finish
However,
that.
Chris has a correction or two, so you go, Chris.
Regarding the roads, when you were talking about the road reserve, you said there was $100,000 in the road reserve.
That's cool.
Yeah, last year, the balance for the end of 2019 was $5,280,000.
It's a little bit more.
It's just a little
What happened to
different.
the balance?
what I meant was that, every year we put 100,000 in.
Oh,
We
yeah,
have that
that's,
wrong number.
well,
I thought you were talking
There's only
about
5 years
the
left.
amount that was added.
We did it 10 years ago, 15 years
Oh,
ago, expect
okay.
to see that these 5 years ago.
Let me get this clear, how much do we have in the road reserves each year?
That's
in
nice of you,
20,
Paul.
the end of last year, we added $971,959 to the road reserve.
Added.
Almost
Added.
$1 million.
Yes.
Almost.
The total road reserve is $15 million.
We don't have it, that's the
Right.
issue.
I understand, because there's something there that I need to discuss with the people at that particular meeting, but I can't do it because guests are not allowed, and it's very frustrating.
I understand that. Another thing, Gene, I think, finish up.
Yes, the balance as of 2019 was $5,280,405.
Everybody hear that?
Now,
Oh, sorry. The balance in the road reserve as of the end of 2019 was $5,280,405.
You have a small correction there, Gene. The deadline was, for the 15th was not for the audited report, it was for the corporation tax return. And as a follow-up, it was filed on time.
Hold on.
And the update on the audited report, I just got yesterday a draft of the audited report, and there's a lot of work to be done on the draft. For everybody's knowledge, we had the privilege of 2019, which was delayed, but there is a change in accounting principles that got in effect in 2019 that is the most severe change in accounting in the last 30 years. And that is the way they treat income and expense. When I finish with the audited report, we will have it at the next meeting. And like I gave out the tax returns here, I would like to cut out the time to go through the audited report because, believe it or not, the audited report is 30 some odd pages long. However, most of those, thank you, most of that 30 pages is comments to our report, changes that the current auditor felt had to be corrected the way it was handled. And I think I mentioned this before, the largest individual number, the balance sheet was reduced by almost $500,000 by a reserve that he felt, and I discussed it with him, was not properly treated. There are other adjustments. I think I received 30 adjustments to the report. But the other part is the technical explanations, which, by the way, are not easy even for an auditor or an accountant to understand because it's such a major change. What does it mean to us? It changes the outlook of what we have. So we will have that report finished. It takes time to go through it. Another comment that was precipitated by your minutes, Gene, I went out and called the engineering company, basis what the gentleman from the engineering company said, and I requested an estimate to walk the village again, that's federal engineering, and highlight for us those areas which he feels should be done on an immediate basis, and those that should be done down the road. And if you recall, I think we left about $200,000 in there to do those immediate. The instant problem we have with the bid, which I've called on, is that the proposal came in a little over $3,000, like $3,300, and even if we wanted to process it, we would be inhibited because the $2,500 limitation on the new bylaws would have been exceeded, and to do that, you'd have to go through the officers committee, the executive board, and a vote by the delegate assembly. So I called them and I said, we're being precluded from doing the job. Get a very thin, thick pencil sharpener and come back to us. And we haven't gotten it yet. There was one other comment, I think, but it will come back up, and that is the next biggest number is the irrigation system, which is about $7 million. I called the outfit that gave us their winging proposal. We never got a response. However, I did go to, the other day, the expo, which was an expo for HOAs and CAMs, and we got some very good information. It isn't done yet, but I spoke to an irrigation company and asked them if they would come in and do a detailed study, and the indication hasn't been confirmed yet is they would do it, not charge us, but they would like the opportunity in the future when work is given out to be one of the companies that gets an RFP. So I felt that wasn't a bad request. I'm waiting for them to come back. The other interesting thing, which we discussed, that's on there, I did go to a very enlightening class, and the class was on background checks. And the information had one very interesting point, which I haven't had the chance to confirm, is that the national report that we do get contains criminal information in the areas where we're now paying $98 or $65. However, the difference is the national check only reports convictions. It doesn't report when anybody is charged. Now, I haven't been able to confirm that yet. It's a very interesting point. And also, I should receive today detailed information from Scott Roberts as to the billing and what their criteria are. And what I did do is we pulled 9 months, right, 9 months of invoices from Scott Roberts, and one of our volunteers who is not here, Cookie Melendez, has it. She's very good at Excel, and she's going to prepare an Excel schedule extending every single charge. In other words, Mr. Jones, what the basic charge is, what the upcharges were, so we'll have a better idea of what it's costing us now. Now, off the cuff, the new outfit gave me their estimate of what their services would charge, but the gentleman was very, very, I think, honest. He said, I really can't give you a number until I see what reports you're getting for what you're paying now. And that, I think, information I'll have today. So I think we covered a lot of those bases. Go ahead, Chief.
I need to go back to the correction of the minutes. We left where we were, in the rows. Let's see, we got the rows numbered correctly. There was one other correction.
Tax return, or the audit.
Oh, the audit, that's where it was.
Right.
Here. Okay.
You need to speak up.
It needs,
I can't hear a word.
You have to speak
I,
up.
I can't hear.
I think we need more mics, that's what I think.
Well, here, I'm not using this.
Okay.
You want to pass it along?
Why don't we pass this down as we go along? I think I've covered most of what you have. Anybody else have anything in the minutes?
No, not minutes.
Bob, you got something?
No, not on the minutes. Just something that you mentioned,
Go ahead.
about the, investigations.
I can't,
You were talking about the investigations.
right.
All right, now, you're trying to get, are you trying to get, charges plus convictions?
I'm not interested in the results of anybody's individual report.
Right,
I
cost,
just want to
the cost.
concentrate on the costs
Right.
that we're paying, and there's more than one package, there's upcharges, and if you weren't here, but the gross profit, you know, originally we thought we charge $100, you paid $36, so you should have a gross profit of about 60%. It didn't come out to that, and there's a lot of charges. There's additional charges for people who don't live in the United States.
Right, right.
And that can run anywhere from $250 to $600.
Yeah, they can be very expensive.
I can't hear.
They can be very expensive.
Right.
All right.
And we don't really know the amount of occurrences. But the one charge that I did pick up on, go ahead, Bob.
No, go ahead.
The one charge that I saw occurring with a fairly regularity was to interrogate the boroughs of New York City to go into their database. Charge used to be $68, now it's $98. So if they do that, we wind up paying $144, and we're limited to 100. And my question was, and I discussed that with Donald, and I discussed that with Scott Roberts. I asked Scott Roberts about these charges and how other clients handle it. And he said other clients like us, if they feel that charge should be incurred, they notify the client, i.e. it could be us. They give the client the date of the infraction, not other much information, and the client can say go ahead or not go ahead, And my point was, Bob, if you had a guy or a girl or a person who was criminally charged and convicted in 1962 and is now 94 years old, does it really pay to pay the $98?
No. Especially if there's
However, just so you know,
in between, no.
just so you know, Bob, we have given Scott Roberts a blank carte blanche saying, don't bother calling us, just do it. Okay, so I question that, Bob.
I don't know who Scott Roberts is.
Scott Roberts is the agency where we get
The investigation?
Right.
the investigation.
Okay, yeah.
They can do it.
And they're, by the way, they're a pretty good, they're well regarded, they're a pretty good firm, they've been around a while. I checked the firm that I spoke to, and I'm not promoting it. It originated before 1900,
Yeah.
so it's been around a while.
But basically what you're saying is if you got somebody in New York and you investigate them,
Yeah.
and then you gotta investigate from the borough also?
Well, the investigation company gets a preliminary report, well, you're in there, and they determine whether they want to get more information. It's other places too, but if that individual is a resident in New York State and in New York, let's say New York City, in order to get that additional information and get it from the court, the current charge is $98, right?
That's correct.
And I went through 1 month, just 1 month, and just picked it up, you know, for a sample. And the gross income was a hair's breadth over 9,000, and the additional charges for New York City was over 2,000. So it could be, I can't tell if it was worthwhile or not. I just felt we should investigate it.
Then maybe we should look into a different company that's doing it, that handles all of it in one shot, rather than having two separate investigations. That's ridiculous.
Go ahead,
One
Phil.
company.
I worked in investigations and I dealt with this.
Hold on, Phil. It's important. Give it, take a mic. Because it's a lot of money over the year.
It is.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I texted Don Foster. He is out in the roads with the pavers right now. That's why he's not at this meeting.
I didn't hear you.
Don Foster is out with the pavers right now.
You said, what
The
papers?
pavers, they're doing some road repair. So that's why he's not here.
I appreciate you did that. However, we had 2 sessions which concentrated on the roadways and the irrigation. And I asked him to come too, and he each time said he had something else to do. So, I mean, that's overdone with gone.
Okay? I'll just let you know.
All right, back to investigations. Unfortunately, when we get people from New York that want to buy in here, it's very, very expensive, because all the preliminary investigation does is give for the state itself, if they were convicted in the state. But if they lived in Brooklyn or any borough in New York, or sometimes any small town, there's an extra charge because their records aren't shown, unless they were convicted of a felony and went to prison or something like that. The same thing goes to Canada. We have a lot of people from Canada here. There's an extra charge because it's out of country. Plus there's phone calls that have to be made. The phone bill for investigations has got to be greater than any of the other departments.
I don't doubt that. I'm not disputing anything about anybody outside the country. I know those are expensive, but if you're going to sit there and have an investigation, and if it's for the state, say New York State, well, the state should have all the information from where they live.
Yeah.
They should.
They should, but they don't.
then that says a lot about New York, doesn't it?
For example, if somebody gets arrested for shoplifting or wife beating or whatever, small crimes,
That's not small.
well, unless they go to state
At
prison,
least not the wife beating, anyway.
unless they go to prison, you know, in the state. No, if they go to local jail, we don't know about it unless, you know, we check that borough or that town. I'm not defending investigations, but that's the fact.
There is also, and that's a very important fact, Paul, which I checked. My question was, Mr. and Mrs. Jones lives in the Bronx. They're buying here in Florida. How come we have to? There's a question that could go on the application is, were you ever convicted of a crime or a felony? The state of Florida lets you put that on the application. State of New York does not. And for whatever reason, the long arm of New York, in this case, or any other state, comes into Florida. Now, there is a list of states that let you and states that don't. And I requested that from Scott Robertson. We should be getting it now. But if someone lives in Florida or any of the other states, we're allowed, or anybody's allowed, to put on the original application were you ever convicted of a crime. The other two exceptions are anything to do with the government. It's allowed all over the place. Anything to do, I believe, if you're in an industry that has to be covert, you know, that's allowed. So the only other question I had from just an evaluation standpoint is the agency, whether it's Scott Roberts or not, if you ask them, don't do it until you let us know, we'll send you when the crime was done. And I think you could be prudent. I'm just using 1962, the guy was 50 years old, you know, he's 110. Do you need to pay the $98? That's a judgment call.
Excuse me, I have a question for you. You mentioned if you call out of the country. You mentioned if you call out of the country. Are you talking about our investigations in here? If they call to Canada, there's an additional charge?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, then you have I call to Canada all the time, and I don't have an additional charge, so I guess it's the phone service.
No, it's for the court.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a what?
not, it's not for a phone call.
No, it's for the court.
It's for the court.
It's for the court.
Yeah, you're not calling the court.
No, I'm not. I'm calling out of the country.
Hello, this is Betty. Give me the,
And
I'm sorry, it wasn't very
this
clear.
matter is not gonna be settled here.
no, it's just,
We need to go back to the officers committee
Yeah.
and attempt to find a way to legally charge an individual who was buying from out of state or out of the country enough money to pay for the investigation. Wait a minute, there is a law that you can't do it, I understand that.
Right.
We have to find a way to get around that law, which there are always loopholes. It may be that we could charge the building, the association, I don't know. But there must be a way of getting around that in order for us not to lose money when a person moves in who is from another state or another country. It has to be investigated.
I don't know about the law. What I did hear is that Seacrest is doing investigations now. And I asked to talk to their person that handles it. And by the way, Seacrest had someone at the same seminar. It appears to me that they've developed a way to charge back not the individual, but the association.
There you go.
Probably,
I don't know how they do it. I don't know if it's legal or what.
probably call it an administration fee.
Thank you. There's always a
However-
loophole somewhere.
However,
But that's not gonna gonna solve nothing at this meeting.
Right,
I
but-
No,
know
I
that.
understand that, that's why I said, we can't solve anything here, it
Yeah.
has to go back to the officers committee.
That's where it has to go.
Okay,
But we should have, I agree, but we should have our own research to try to,
no,
No.
we do the money, we either say yes or no.
Right.
Let them do the research, that's what they're
Yeah,
here
that's their
for.
job.
That's their responsibility.
well,
But,
okay, I'm not gonna argue the point, let's move
You're
on.
having a lot of difficulty getting associations to even do investigations
Yeah,
now.
right.
All right? That's why we're getting a lot of, excuse my language, but a lot of crappy people moving in.
You're saying they just don't do it.
Right? They're not doing the
They don't have
investigations.
boards.
They don't
have boards.
care.
Well, be aware that the individual association, if they do it correctly, can pay $35, not $100. Now, some associations and some people who are very au fait, and I think one's right here, does their own investigation. So, there is ways, but you have to concentrate on them. I'd like to move forward. I got 2 microphones.
Oh, yeah, one to the right, one to the left.
Because they want to hear you.
Excuse me?
I
They
said
want-
go one to the right, one to
I'm Leslie.
What are we looking at?
I want to move along and jump something. I handed out the corporation income tax returns. Now, let me say this. The return that I printed is strictly the federal income tax return. It doesn't include the state. The entire package with all the instructions is approximately 50 pages. So I felt I'll bring in the abbreviated, it's all the pages from the federal tax return. And I could forward to everybody via email the entire tax return. I know in the past it's been made available. I don't know how many people have ever really gone to get it and what they're looking at. And if you look at the return, it's completely different than last year's, 2018. But without getting into the minutia, if you look through the pages, and if you go to the back of the return, where the schedules are, okay, you will see individual schedules which itemize the expenses. You will see them again in a different fashion when we do the actual audited report. But what I wanted to highlight, and take your time looking through it, read carefully, you're getting a test after this. Everybody's done, if you're not, let me know. And by the way, you could take these home, and if you study it further and you have any additional questions, don't hesitate to give me a call. Do you have a copy? Good. And by the way, I emailed everybody a copy of this. I don't know if you got it.
Okay, we need to start discussing some stuff because.
I'm sorry, Bob, I can't hear you.
All this silence is not gonna go well on TV, I'll tell you right
Oh, well, there, I understand, but everybody here is doing a cursory.
Right, if there are some things on here I would like to discuss.
I want to highlight one or two things.
Well, could you highlight it?
If you go to page 6.
Page 6?
6. That used to be a television show, I think. And if you go to line 6,
Yeah, go ahead.
and you look at 2018, which is the left.
What is he talking
What do you- what-
about? Are you talking about the?
You're on the
tax-
balance sheet,
the
page 6.
The balance sheet.
Okay.
No, it's in the tax return, yeah, it's
The tax return, right?
Right.
Page 6 of
Other
this.
firm assessments.
Talking about 514,375.
Page 6.
Page 6.
Says,
It says
Other current
balance
assets?
sheets per books.
yeah,
And
number
what-
6, what number?
Excuse me?
Line 6.
Number 6, okay,
Okay.
514.
I want you to go to line 6, where it says other current assets, statement.
Statement 3. I'm assuming.
Yeah, statement 3.
It's 514,375.
That's, yeah, right, Betty. That highlights what I said earlier. In 2018, you see a number of 514,000 plus. In 2019, you only see 11,000.
Yeah,
That's the write-off that I spoke to earlier. That asset represented a prepaid expense. In other words, money that we had prepaid that we would work off over a period of time. The problem with putting it on the balance sheet as such is, in order to really call it prepaid and have a value as you go forward, it would eliminate an expense that you've already taken, so you won't see it on the income statement. It also means if you stopped using that asset, you had a cash value. In other words, you could cash it in, reduce an expense, and get money,
Residual value.
a residual value. That had zero residual value. So there is no reason to carry it and give the impression that it was worth something. The other item is United Civic Organization is a non-for-profit. It's not a non-profit. The difference basically being if you have what they call a 501c3, that's kind of a corporation. If you make a donation to it, you could take an expense on your tax return as a donation. Our not-for-profit, not-profit, I think it's a 501c4, I could be mistaken. What it means is that a good portion of the income that you take in, and the biggest portion of the income that we take in, is our own dues, is not a taxable amount. You're not paying taxes on. What we do pay taxes on is any net income that we earn from a commercial operation is taxable, i.e. the money, go ahead.
The money that we get for rent from
Right.
Atlantic Broadband, as an example, right?
Right, exactly.
Or
Yeah.
Seacrest, or Seacrest.
Yeah.
Seacrest.
Also, the money you get from the UCO reporter, that's taxable. The money you get from the laundry is taxable. Now, you're allowed to allocate certain expenses, and if you recall a meeting or two ago, I handed out 4 sheets, and I took so much of the rent, so much insurance and so much what. When I got this return, the taxable portion was much greater. I did talk to Guy Strum. I sent him the allocation. He reviewed it and basically agreed with the allocation. The only thing he had to do is my allocation was for 2020. This is 2019. He went back to 2019. He determined what he felt was comfortable. And basically, we went from the original expense, it was a little over, almost $11,000. It came down to less than $5,000. Now, it's still our responsibility, it's our numbers. But just the key here was to make everybody aware that what we do, that we make money on, we pay the tax. Unless you have another account. Anybody have any questions we could take care of now? If not, feel free to call. Okay, moving along. I'm going to go to those, we all have a long sheet, I believe.
The allocation.
You should have a sheet.
Ed, the allocation sheet,
No, I thought we gave out the income sheet.
only sheets you gave me are what I have in front of me.
Well,
Is an allocation sheet?
the allocation sheet is what I spoke about.
Okay, now this other sheet here was.
Let's see if you put anything here.
This is a budget for monthly, all I have is the 2020 budget.
Hold on.
Are you talking about the budget sheet?
Yes.
That's the small sheet like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's big to me, my eyes are big.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah, that's why I know it.
That's the one.
Everybody had this sheet,
Yes.
and obviously you have the allocation sheet. So, what I put on the agenda, I want to cover those items that in the prior meetings we didn't cover. And one of the sections we didn't cover was the income section, which is right on top. It says income. Everybody got it? Yeah, it was. Now you have on that sheet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, but it all doesn't count. If we start with, let's not start with the general fees. Let's start with the cable fees. Okay. The items like the ambulance fee, the cable fee, the landscape and irrigation fee, the security fee, and the transportation fee. Those numbers match the expense. And why do they match the expense? Because for all the expenses, we, being the owners, are being charged back in our dues. So that really is a wash. In other words, if we determine what the bus is, we then charge ourselves back for the bus. We don't make a profit, we don't make a loss. We should be being reimbursed the expense to the same amount as by charging it income. Anybody have any question on that? Yes, Bob.
Okay, on that particular fees that you're talking about, under transportation, is excursions, in
He's on
that
income.
budget?
He's on the income.
I know, but is the excursion.
I can't hear you, Bob, I'm sorry.
You said that we charge ourselves.
Right.
The exact amount.
Right.
So the excursions that we.
Oh, all right.
Is that included in that?
I have to take a look. I think we put in about $12,000 or $15,000 for,
16,000.
how much?
16.
Okay, I'm glad that was brought up, Bob. I think Barbara has a little bit to say.
I believe we had a meeting a while back, and it was discussed about the excursion buses and that they would be cut down either to 1 or 0 for this year.
Bob, let's talk about the,
Well, wait,
Yeah.
let what Bob just said, I'd like to answer. The last time excursion buses came up, and you can check it, if you go back in the database, would you have the availability, that it was brought up to the delegate assembly, and the delegate assembly voted to keep 2 buses per month. Nobody can change that but the delegate assembly. I don't care officers,
disagree.
I don't care who. I don't care,
disagree.
that's what the bylaws say. Check it out.
I disagree with that. I think that can be changed.
Only through the delegate assembly, Bob. They rule, not the officers.
okay, let me just jump in here for a minute. This year is the first year, if we get to vote on the budget, that it's voted line by line. So what we propose here, and we get to the point of whether the committee or not accepts what we have right now, it then goes to the officers committee, the executive board, and then to the delegates. Now, any number we put down here, if the delegate doesn't approve it, it doesn't count. However, and I say however, what Barbara said is true up to a point because the delegate can change it. But I think Barbara has some information to give the Finance Committee.
Ops had voted to allow Eva to have this person, Pam Avalos, come in and give out bags, do you remember? Maybe 2 or 3 meetings ago. But nothing happened. Bags with a book, a hard-covered book, nostalgia. It's from the people that are marketing, and they're gonna put in sanitizer and face masks and stuff. This was brought up maybe 2 or 3 months ago. It was left in Eva's hand to figure out how they were going to deliver these bags to the community. I think they're going to have, we'll find out Tuesday, a drive-through up here. And you'll come and you'll have your trunk open, they'll put a bag in it. They're getting it away for nothing. They might put a lunch in there. I don't know the particulars, okay? But because of that, he asked me to call this woman to find out, because I don't know if WPRF is getting anything for allowing them to market. Follow me? But Ed came up with the idea, and this woman was very receptive, Pam Avalos, that they would be willing to do a excursion bus, as long as we allow, let's say you have 50 people on the bus, for them to give out bags to people as they go on the bus. And they would pay for the bus, which is a pretty good deal. And they would get the coach. So we have to see, because right now, it's really up here because we can't do excursion buses. And until we can do the excursion buses, it's not here or there. But the idea is that that's something that we can get money for, that people are willing to pay. More than one bus and more than 1 month.
My whole point about that is, I think, first of all, it's really not a legal expense to charge every resident in here for excursion buses. We have to pay for our buses to go and take people around town and whatnot, and to the store and stuff. That's legal. But the excursion buses, all right, that is not something that can be put on us. You know, it just
You're
shouldn't
right,
be put on us.
it's not a necessary
Right?
expense.
Exactly.
You're right.
Now, if you want to provide an excursion and charge everybody, say, $5 to take their little trip wherever they want to go, to the little,
Flea market.
that flea market, that's the one that everybody goes to, you want to pay $5 to go to the flea market and come back? Fine. I have no problem with that. I don't even mind, as a resident, paying for one bus, but 2 a month, no. I am strongly against that. All right, it's the one bus would be $8,000 a year, okay? And going here and looking what you guys are putting in for new computers, $5,000. All right, I think that $8,000 that we save should go to new computers, because if you've ever gone into these guard shacks and see what they're working with, it's trash. They need new computers in there. Every one of those computers need to be replaced, and then there's some in the office. And I suggested that they turn around and get all-in-one computers instead of these computers that our tech guy, Steve, is buying. He's charging us, $800 for one computer, whatever it was. $700, I'm sorry, $700. And where you can go to Best Buy and get an all-in-one for $400.
Excuse me, Bob. I know what you said because you brought it up at another meeting. I think anybody here and any unit owner is entitled to their own opinion. Now, I haven't sailed in a long time, yet I don't think the sunfish that 8 people use is a item that has to be done. But I don't think, whether I feel it or you feel it or what everybody feels it, it is a matter to bring to the delegate floor, and they could vote on it. And quite frankly, they could vote 3 ways. 0, maybe 4. 1, 2, or 4. Because not only can we vote from the floor, we can make proposals. So I can appreciate what you said, And I remember what you said at another meeting. I have a schedule here, you did one too, of those computers that Steve Henn has sold us over the years. And he put a value on it, which is just off the top of his head for used computers. And $13,000 because they're used. And I added the printer that we bought in 2019, the Konica. So, actually, that number came from Steve Henn that I put down because he submitted what he thinks it'll cost us. Doesn't mean what it is, because we get a few repairs, it knocks this whole thing out of line. In other words, we're talking about replacing computers, but we're also talking about when he comes in and changes and does a repair or whatever.
Right.
So, I agree, we could buy computers for $300. As far as I'm concerned, what I usually do, there's a firm called Tiger Direct, which used to have stores. It's online. They sell IBM or HP factory rebuilt computers. And in the past and recently, I bought a computer that you couldn't touch for less than $1,200, and it cost me like $450 or $500. And don't forget, we have Steve Henn, which we pay a fee. When I buy it, I buy their 3 or 4 year plan, which covers replacement. So that if anything goes wrong for 3 or 4 years, it's not even prorated. If they can't send you a part, you get a new computer and you pay a fee. So I agree that everybody has an opinion, and I felt the 2 hot button issues, which I wrote in an earlier article, was getting rid of AMR and the buses. Now, I understand, let me tell you this. To me, it makes no difference because I drive. And to me, as you know, I go to the little flea market down the road on Military, right after Forest Hills Boulevard.
Right, that's mine all the time.
And it's not as big, it doesn't have the food, although it has food, it has a lot of interesting foods. And if they did that, I think it would be, I think it would be within the routing distance. I mean, to go to Forest Hills Boulevard in Okeechobee. But I'm not on the transportation committee, and I don't know if that's what they really want. I understand there's 2 people. One proposes to go to some place like Festival, and the other likes to go to like museums and whatever. I did get, because what was always said to me, it's the same 50 people who go every month. Fortunately, the person who was in charge, I asked if they had any manifests, who went on what bus. And she didn't have everything, she had several. But I could tell you, I counted well over 100 different people.
Okay, that's 100 then, but
I'm not arguing the point.
if the same 50 are getting on the bus,
No, they're not.
no, but what I'm saying is, when they put that list out, they're in line right away. Early in the morning, before they even open up, they're in line. And the people that want to go can't go. So, if they're going to have 2 buses, and I'm going to be one of the people paying for it, I want to see it that if you take the first bus, you don't take the second one. You let it for somebody else.
I think that's by the way, Bob, I think that's a well-taken point. And I think whether you have 1, 2, 3, or 4, that's fair. There has to be a way, and it can't be that difficult, of keeping a record of who's going and when. And that could be done. And if you don't have enough people, maybe someone else could go. But equalizing it, I think, is a fair, as far as I'm concerned. Barbara.
Okay, I was chair of transportation for about 2 years. And I want to tell you something. The transportation with the two buses, they don't both go to the same place that month. You do understand
I
that?
understand.
Let's say one bus goes to the flea market because that's very popular. One bus, I don't know, wherever it goes. I'm not even going to say. But I will tell you that I got free buses to go to the sugar plantation, okay? And I got it from the county. And what I did was I kept a list. If you went on that trip, I had a list. I'm only saying when I did. I don't know what they did after me. And then when I got another trip to the sugar plantation, if you were on that first bus that was going there, you were not allowed on the second bus because you had to open it up to all the people. But you can't, what you have to do is, the buses are going to the same place, if they're going to the same place. But it's like anything else, Bob. If that there is out there at 8 o'clock in the morning to sign up, you want to go, you get your rear end here and you sign up at 8 o'clock. Now, people who take buses can't get here at 8. They got to get here at 9 because they take a bus to get there. Okay? Same thing. You have a transportation committee people. I had the meeting here. People who take the bus have such a hard time to go to UCO to get to the meeting. At least here, they take a bus, they come here, and they can make the meeting. You think that's fair to have it at UCO? When those people don't drive?
Right.
They can't even go to the meeting.
I'm
There's
one
one
of them.
person.
I'm one of them.
Yeah, they have it at UCO. People have to come here, if I didn't drive, because I drive, like you, I have to come here, get a bus, and then take the bus to UCO.
Right.
That's not fair.
Well,
I could say this, and I'm throwing it on the table. When you bring a busload of people to a vendor, it may have some value to the vendor. And just like I spoke to Pam Avalos, who those of you who probably were here got her mail every week, you know, when she was at CSI. She had a habit of trying to get people to come by throwing lunches. You know, you came, you heard her spiel, you got a lunch. And that sort of gave me the idea, Pam, would you do this? It's an advertisement for you.
Which she said she might do, you're
Oh,
right.
oh, she told me
And to
emphatically
take
that
the-
she would do it.
To defer the expense of the
I
bus.
want to
They'll
extend,
do it because
I
they're
want
not
to,
on
I want to extend that.
Yeah,
People could be active. You take, if it's 2 buses, 100 people, let's say to festival. It doesn't take a great deal of effort to make a call, or when you go to festival, go around and see if any of the vendors, you know, if you feature them, are willing to kick in for the cost of the bus. I mean, we're all volunteers. I could tell you, I was at, what do they call that, Sunrise Mall, the little one there? I spoke to one vendor for sure. He said, I'm willing to do advertising, I'm not ready to do it. Now, you must have 100 vendors there. If someone went around and tried to solicit it, you know, we'll put your name in, we'll feature you. It'll be like any other merchant who wants to sell. Now, if you talk about festival, that's a major market. It's not even, to me, a flea market. That's permanent businesses who pay a substantial amount of rent. Most of their booths are set up for permanent. So, someone or a group who's interested could make an effort to try to get some money to offset it.
Ed, in the festival, from what I gathered, it might have changed since I've handled it. They have a management company that runs the whole place. All you have to do is take a couple of people on transportation, set up an appointment with them, and talk to them. Maybe they won't do it every month, but maybe every other month they'll sponsor a whole bus.
Right.
That's what we want. But you gotta have the people to do it. I mean, if you got a transportation committee, that's their job, to do that.
Well, go ahead, Phil.
Also, I belong to the Italian Club.
Right.
They have trips to the casino, and the casino will pick up the bus cost,
Right.
all right?
The casino
The
bid.
casino pays for it. I'm not saying I mean, businesses do that. They
That's
really
right.
do.
That's right.
So, the
Well,
people who
casino,
manage
definitely.
a flea market, and they're getting paid, you know, from the rental of each space. Sure, if you bring in 50 or 100 people, they'll be willing.
Well, you gotta go down and find out.
Right.
That's the whole thing. You know, we can sit here and hypothetically talk all day. Till somebody gets up and goes and does it, you're not gonna know.
They would probably pick, if,
You can't
from an
say.
economic standpoint, every venue has busy days and slow days. So if, and I'm sure festival has the same thing. And if you focus that we'll bring 100 people on Wednesdays, which you hardly do any business, I think not only would the management do it, but I think some of the vendors would. And I can tell you, I'm trying to think, not Costco, what's the other big discount store here?
Jazz Club.
BJ's. Let me tell you, BJ's has a program.
They're gonna go to business.
And I can tell you firsthand, BJ's has a program that someone can go to BJ's and make a request, and every month they have an allocation to give money for certain functions. There's a lot, but you have to have people to do it.
Ed, you know, you're actually right, but if you're not gonna have people who are in charge of these committees come to
So
this
good,
meeting,
that's right,
you're
that's
wasting
what
your
I'm saying.
time.
Yeah.
Because the people who need to do this are not at this meeting.
Right.
And that's the whole, that's the
Yeah.
whole issue. Where are they?
And unless you and Bob or officers bring it back, we can't do it because we can't go to the meetings. I requested to go to a meeting every month since the pandemic and been refused.
Well, as you heard him say, I brought this up before.
Absolutely.
I brought this up before.
Yeah, but you
Because-
didn't bring it up about someone going and meeting and finding out if they
No,
could get
no,
paid
I-
for.
that's-
As far as this here, the delegates rule, we live in a condo thing. You got, like right here, we all voted on
Yes.
something, majority rule.
They can sit there and the majority rule thing,
Yes.
right? But if it's not something that is legally binding, and it's not, just because they say we want,
You're wrong.
they could turn around and say, well, we want 4 excursions, but we want an
Excuse me.
excursion bus every week.
Let-
It's not legal.
Let me just say something. There's nothing in our bylaws that say about a racquetball club. When they put the racquetball things in, nobody says that's legal. Do you play racquetball? Do you play racquetball? Do you play? No. I played racquetball one time. Nobody, that's not legal either. It's part of the amenities that you're doing, okay? It's not in our bylaws. You could get rid of that tomorrow.
That's
What do you think would
that's
happen? The
amenity
people would not
structure.
allow it.
That is a structure that is put up. It's permanent.
They-
Once it's put up, it's permanent, all right? The excursion buses are not.
But the bottom
something
line
that's
is, Bob, everything comes down to the delegate
I
assembly.
remember when my mother first moved here, they
Right.
had trolleys here.
I remember, I know, I
They
heard
had
about it.
trolleys and all they did was drive around the village and maybe go to Publix or whatever it was. But that was it. I don't think they went out the gate,
Bob,
did they?
Bob, do you think you need 7 buses a day going out the way they do?
You know what?
No, absolutely
I
not.
agree with you.
Look how many people are on those buses.
Maybe 4.
I've seen so many empty buses, and then you go to Publix, and there's 3 empty buses coming in, and there's
I'm back
one
to,
going out with a person.
So who's the head of those committees?
thank you.
Who is the head of those committees and why aren't they here?
They haven't had a meeting
Well,
since this whole COVID
this is just a
stuff.
waste of time.
We're wasting our time not going over the budget.
You pick something, hold it, you pick something that you don't have to schlep all the ways down to festival. You're saying the buses go to Publix. Has anybody ever talked to Publix? Don't forget they have the whole village
Yes.
going to one
Publix-
supermarket.
No.
Publix knows very simply, all right, we got you. We got you by the
They
cojones.
don't care.
We got you by the cojones.
I-
We're going here.
There's gotta be, there used to be more than one, there's gotta be another supermarket around
And
here.
even take Publix, they go to more than one Publix. They go Village Boulevard, they go Jog. I mean, I can go through, I mean, I don't want to take this time up. They go to many. You're not going to get it from corporate, from Publix. But the Publix where most of the people who live here go on community, the majority, they set up a little waiting area for them to sit and everything, if you know. I mean, I don't go there, but this is what I heard. Why isn't the paper, every store that's on the route for all buses should be putting an ad in that paper?
Well,
Why aren't they? Where's the person getting the
well,
ad?
it takes,
Right here. I'm the one getting the ad.
But they
and
say
they
it's the
won't
woman we're
advertise.
paying up there, the $1,000